Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Field of Dreams on ACTN. I'm Steve David, I'm your host. Today I want to talk about the Normalization Committee group that's supposed to be running our football. And we want to talk about some payment updates, give you some payment update viewers on what's going on with that. I have two special guests and they know a little bit more than me about that kind of stuff. Let me introduce my panel. Jefferson George, welcome to Set Jeff.
Thanks, Steve. Always a pleasure to be here.
I hope you bring the information with you.
I brought some receipts.
Whatever you know, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And Angus C., welcome to Set Angus.
Thanks for having me, Steve. Thanks to be on the, nice to be on the program again. It's been a little while.
It's been a while. I haven't seen you. What you been up to, running around?
Well, George have me running all over Trinidad, advocating on behalf of coaches and players and administrators and stuff. So.
Because the last couple of programs I've been calling out the guys who involved, but there was a petition went around and to get people to get in the normalization, to get the normalization committee in place. And I says, everything's been silent and they haven't been doing nothing, they've been dragging. So I wanted to get people who was that interested in getting rid of Wallace administration to come out and do something about that. So I'm glad now that things are happening. And I know that I didn't even know until I read the article. So everything that I say today would be based on what I read. I have no inside information, and I hope you guys do, because my viewing audience would love to know what's going on with payments and all the different things and what Normalization Committee is supposed to be doing that they haven't done.
Right.
So, Jeff, let me open it up for you to start, and then we would just go through barbershop discussion kind of thing.
Okay. Again, it's always good to have an opportunity to give to the public, pertinent information that they have been staffed for. One of the good things that we can report is that the Normalization Committee has reached out, and we will be meeting with them later on today. All right, so that's on the positive column. Another concern of mine is that because football existed, in so much back and forth, there's been a lot of, animosity and things always seem to be, up in the air, all right? And persons can perceive that this is just another issue, just another disagreement on policy. And I want the public to know that this, what we're going through here, every time we speak on behalf of individuals. These are families, these are persons with young children who aren't able to cope because they aren't receiving salaries which they work for, right? So I don't want this issue to be mixed up in, the type of partisan type of nature how we deal with things, So that's a couple of things that we'll probably be able to expand on as we go forward.
Okay, Angus, you want to add?
First of all, Steve, your opening remarks spoke about people who sign petitions and stuff. I wasn't one of those who signed any petition, but I was one of those people who felt that after we voted in the Wallace administration, I thought that they went off course. And why would I say something like that? Because the people had already spoken. We had voted out David John Williams because we saw that, what the stuff that he was doing that people didn't agree with. And when you win the battle, you don't need to keep fighting. You need to now progress. And I thought that we were focusing so much on John Williams and trying to persecute him, we actually forgot the mission that we had. So I would always speak out, whether it be, it would never be personal, though. It would be just about what's happening in the football. And as George rightly said, we now have a new challenge with the normalization committee not giving that sort of respect that the players, the staff, the people who work in the office, the public deserve. And hence the reason why we're speaking out. It's not just about salaries has not been paid, and I think people look at it very from a myopic standpoint when they only point to that. It's about the level of disrespect that is been handed down with the lack of communication. Because if there was no Jefferson George and Steve David and all these other players who would have played football, there would be no need for a normalization committee. A normalization committee came in to normalize football, not themselves.
But and it's true. But it's been over a year now. They've been here, and nobody have heard nothing. And it's only now that I guess we kind of jerk the rope and get in some movement. But my issue was big time was we just sat doing nothing. And when I started to do what I'm doing now, I it's a reflection of back in the day when Jack Warner came into business and he took over football, which he'd done a lot. But I said nobody's going to come in our country now and take over the football and or sit on it, because I think people, when Jack came and take over, everybody sat and allow him to do that. So my thing is, no, but that should never happen. So whether it's FIFA, whoever, it should never happen that we just sit and don't say nothing, sit on our mouth. Why are we doing that?
Yeah, well, for me, that's one of the things that I believe this moment is going to bring about. That's I think, a positive change, because the public, they are fed up, right? The public has been abused, left out of things. If we recognize that football, sports in general, it's driven by the players. The players on the field are the most important people in any sport. If they are not there, there is nothing to go to look at. There is nothing to try to monetize. There is no sponsorship. There is nothing. And we seem to have it reversed in Trinidad and Tobago. Now, you mentioned Jack Warner. When we played under that regime, players were paid, right? There were incentives for performing well, right? And again, there are a lot of things that you may disagree with, but he understood that for investments to come into the football has to be doing well. You cannot ignore or disregard the player who causes you as an administrator to have a job. You can't disregard him. I think that is where in our football administrations get it so wrong. And at this moment, you have these players literally, being taken advantage of, because they are the ones who are on the field. They're going out there, they're taking the heavy criticism when things don't go well, and still without any type of remuneration. That is totally unacceptable. And I think now is a moment when, as we are under normalization, let us fix this. Let us fix this.
I think all these sentiments, Jefferson, but because you started with Jack Warner, I'll go back there. Jack built his football acumen from zero. And it wasn't like he was placed there by someone. He was voted in. And I'm not doing an advert for Austin Jack Warner, but we need to compare at this point in time. And under him, a lot of guys were given a different level of exposure. The Caribbean football, because justice mustn't always be done, but it must always appear to be done. We used to have Caribbean tournaments. Jack fought for those things. Jack fought for us having a say in CONCACAF, a say in world football. We were one body because we have the largest block of teams besides Europe. And because of that, we had a different level of power. Players were given exposure and different things and all that kind of thing. And you see, since Mr. Warner is not there, what you're having now is businessmen coming in and running football and not involving football people. Steve David would be involved in football like Glenn Hoddle is and like John Barnes is in any other country. But they look at us as people who they believe, because we played football, we don't have that level of intelligence to administrate, which is very wrong and it's very disrespectful. And this is what we keep having, because people keep saying, okay, bring in the businessmen. And we keep bringing in the businessmen. Tim Key was a businessman. David was a businessman. Robert is now a businessman. And still they can't get it right because they don't want to respect the people. They don't want to come and ask us, Steve David, how it was done in his time and how can we improve it now, because you would have lived there, seen the metamorphosis of it, see the change. You have the younger people like Jefferson George and Travis Mulray. All these guys are intelligent guys. And we need to have these people on board so that we can collectively, because we want the business people on board. We don't want to push them away. We want them on board. We need sponsorships. Okay. And I think that synergy needs to be bridged.
And you made a good point, but don't you think it's time, or this is the time for those type of people, Jefferson and Mark Travis and these guys, to try to form something? Because at the end of this normalization committee, we're going to have election.
Yeah.
And so we have to start preparing now. When are we going to start? And the preparation should be now.
And that's a wise head, and that is what we have been doing. We have been mobilizing the people, hence the reason we have now started the Coaches Association, which, as you know, has been trying to come off the ground since before you were playing.
Right.
Now we have over 100 members. So it's starting to galvanize and people starting to realize, and as Georgie rightly and you said, we now get in the normalization, and in the past we got William Wallace and them to listen because we actually came together. We are too fragmented. I have long said that football fraternity, we operate as gangs. You know, you have the college league is a gang here, and the Super League is a gang here. We have to have one coalition that would, so you have the head of each one form the board of the association. And then we meet with the technocrats and stuff like that. And that's the only how football can go forward. We need to come together and put our egos aside.
That is so true. It is easier said than done, obviously. But I believe we have been committed. We have a very talented, committed bunch. These people who, would drop their personal stuff and really put their shoulders to changing the dynamic, the way things have normally been. And again, sometimes out of negative situations, we can create positive things. And this is one of the things that I think serves as a catalyst for the Coaches Association and for us reaching out to every stakeholder in Trinidad and Tobago. And the feedback so far has been tremendous, right? People like Gally Cummings, Brian Williams, going back to even the older, some of the older players, Bertil St. Clair, right? And Angus just mentioned it. These are the people who have contributed greatly to our football, to the passion that we have, for the love that we develop for the game, right? And I believe that, tapping into their knowledge, their experience, their wisdom, we can set Trinidad and Tobago football back on that path that we desire. So you have the administrators, doing their part, and again, we continue to offer ourselves to help in whatever way that we can. And then we have the football instructors that would, go around that again we are trying to bolster and bring together from the ground.
And before we get into what we really have to get into, I like the conversation because now, who do we have? I want to put you guys on the spot. Who do we have that you think could take over without corruption? Take this football fraternity or TTFA and make progress with it. And I want somebody young. I don't want no businessman or, like you said, somebody in football who knows football and who has business head to make this happen. Give me any names out there.
I actually been talking to, I mean, it wasn't a, I'll just say it like this. I think we have people like Marlon Morris. Marlon would have played for the strike squad. Marlon is somebody who is well respected in the fraternity. He has a good heart. He's a really, I think he's an honest guy. You know, sometimes they say these things and then they get in power and it changes, you know. Because we said the same thing about William Wallace, and no disrespect to him at all. I think he's an honest guy. I just think he made some mistakes in his administration. So it's no, because I love the man, to be honest. But Marlon Morris, in my opinion, would have been somebody I would have liked to see, somebody like Shaka Hislop, who has the respect of the people of the country and respect of the people far and wide. He has served on committees in FIFA. He would be a fresh face. These guys would be fresh faces. Somebody like Clayton Morris, who has now gone into the Super League presidency. Clayton has shown that he's always been a guy. Everybody still call him Skipper. You know, he's still a guy. And then you have you have the older statesmen, like you said. I mean, to back them up, to give them advice, to be an advisory board, like people like Burton Sinclair, who's been through the mill, Gally Cummins, Mike Greason. You know, these type of people could be on boards, on the statutory boards, to lend that advice. Keith Lucloy, I think he's a brilliant tactician. I think Keith Lucloy is a fantastic person when it comes to the technical aspect of the game and putting in programs and stuff like that. You see, people tend to think when you talk about people in one light that you're personal against them. It's not personal. You're dealing with a specific thing at a point in time. It doesn't negate the strengths and the qualities that the individual actually has.
Okay, this is a good time for us to take a break. But when we come back, we will pick up a little bit of this, and then we will get into what we're really here for. Viewers will be right back after this.
Back in our day, this stipend existed. Back in the day of the same Jack Warner, he used to give us, I was coming from Carenage, we used to get like $30 a day so that we can travel because we weren't professional players back then. We were playing little clubs, ECM Motor and whoever it was.
Okay, welcome back, viewers. So before we move forward, just to end up what we were discussing, whoever out there should raise their hand and says, I am interested, and let me start moving towards that direction in forming some kind of support group for this presidency, because I would hate to wait until harder than they throw up their hands and then we have nothing.
Yeah, I agree with Angus, and that is what we have been doing. Now, again, we are formed to, provide support and to improve the conditions that the coaches operate in. But in doing so, we want to bring all of the game forward, and you see the players are without proper representation at this point in time, and we wanted to be able to impact all these areas. So that is being done. We are being used, and again,
okay,
the moment is now where not just for coaches, but as you reach out, you realize that there are a lot. And while players are playing, is a difficult time for them to be involved in, advocacy and all these type of things. The risk also is for them that, they can be victimized if they speak out, against any one person and so on. But forming ourselves into organized groups can obviously mitigate against, one person being targeted and that type of thing. So all of this is being discovered as we work. And I think if we use this time to rebuild proper networks around football, again, that will be a guardrail, again, against these type of ultimate leaders that we have produced in the post-Jack Warner era. Because the football in itself, the structures are weak. So that allows ultimate leaders to do, exactly as they want without being called to account. And we need to develop a culture of accountability around football that is going to develop the trust that the community has lost. Because anybody who comes to the game now, the public looks at them with a little bit of kooky eye because, I don't know, Angus said it, there are people who would go into the job and you expect well from them, right? I make no bones about it. I openly supported John Williams as well when he went in. I played with W Connection, somebody who was into football, somebody who took a club from a FET match team, and brought them to, win Caribbean titles and things like that. And I expected that this is somebody who was good for the job, right? It didn't work out. Again, these things happen, but it doesn't mean that he doesn't have any good qualities. Yeah. It doesn't mean that we discard him. It doesn't mean that we don't want him around, right? Again, he would have lost an election, and an election is part of that political process which gives us leaders. The person who is not successful in that election, they are not discarded or shouldn't be discarded and say, well, away with him, kind of thing. We need to develop the maturity to understand that we are all needed. Trinidad is too small to be a fragmented place. Football has enough challenges that we are going to have to come together to fix. So it's really, it's unproductive to, be going at each other's throat while football slides. And when it slides, the first people to suffer are the players and the coaches, those who are directly involved in it.
Angus, this one is for you, but because when I stopped playing and then you guys came behind, I was looking at players who I feel could have played with us in my time. Yeah. And you were one I says, who's this kid? And then it's like, you could play with his back to the goal, you could play running at people that we did, and so on. So we follow footsteps, yeah, but we leave footprints. Yeah. So I did the same thing. I followed footsteps of Alvin Cornell and Bobby Shukram, yeah, and I left my footprint, and you did the same. So and I also learned after, you're not afraid to speak out. Like my generation, the Gally Commons and the Selvage Figaro, yeah, they're not scared to talk to nobody. They stand up, yeah, and they say what they feel, yeah, and if you don't like it, you don't like it. Yeah. And that's why I feel we always had a problem, not we, with a lot of Jack Waters one, yeah, that they're not scared of nobody. Yeah. So you're a man who speaks up. And, my judgment was right. So I want now to get into what we're here for. We're here for we have people who's not being paid. We have all kind of stuff that's going on that the public needs to know, or my viewers need to know about it all. Let's spill what we know about this and who hasn't been paid and all that.
All right. Well, let me create the backdrop, because what the fans need to understand, public need to know, is that this pandemic has totally decimated local football. All right? There is nobody, let me correct that, no of the local players are receiving salaries from their clubs. All right? Because those who are out of contract, they are not being paid by the clubs. Now, we had World Cup qualifying, and what would normally happen, the coach would call players in before these games to do, preparation, training, and things like that, maybe a month or so. This is a local group, right? Obviously, you wouldn't have the foreign players probably 5 or 6 days before these tournaments. Now, normally, these players would have been engaged with their local clubs, getting their salaries and so on, and then they would come for a short period of time with the national team. Because of the pandemic, they were called to a national training setup, which is not ordinary, which is not normal. But again, this is to facilitate for the lack of football that they would be having with their team. These players were called last year, early last year, to begin training. None of these players have received 1 cent, not 1 cent, from the national team, right? This is, for us, that is unacceptable, right? Because you have players who are making, the trek to and from training, and at times they train up to 4 or 5 times a week.
They're all professional players?
Right. Well,
national?
yeah, they are professional players because they would normally have contracts. But again, because of the situation that exists, there is no local leagues being played, so there is no salaries being drawn by these players at all, right? So the national team, the nomination committee would have promised the players a stipend.
Right.
That would help the players to and from training and also help make up a shortfall. Now, remember, this is not something to add on to a salary. This now becomes, the stipend becomes the guaranteed income
right.
for these players, which again is reasonable given the scenario that exists. That has not happened, right? As a matter of fact, a couple of weeks ago, the head of the nomination committee came out and announced that he's not obligated to provide any such stipend. And I think this is where the players became really concerned. The players became, disenfranchised because they've been holding out, telling themselves that there was something to be received afterwards, but then there was nothing. Now, there's another thing to this. When these players come out and train, remember, they are not guaranteed of selection into that final, whatever the squad might be to go into the World Cup games. The persons who go into the games, they have the potential of receiving bonuses from the national team when that happens. So again, those local players are losing out twice because you put in the work, and again, fair enough, the coach, it is the coach's prerogative to select the players he thinks are best. But again, these players are being taken advantage of when you use these players in this type of way. So that is what we want to sort of to present that persons would not really be aware of.
Steve, my opinion is just be a little bit different about the local league, because I think I work in the local league, as you know, and I think it's a semi-professional league, to be honest, at best. It runs similar to how the A-League runs in America, where you contract players for a period of time, and once there's no football, then the players are not being paid. So I see it as a semi-pro league, which we developing players to hopefully get bigger and better stuff on the outside. So that is that. I think Georgie pretty much covered everything except for the fact that I think that back in our day, this stipend existed. Back in the day of the same Jack Warner, he used to give us, I was coming from Carenage, we used to get like $30 a day so that we can travel, because we weren't professional players back then. We were playing little clubs, ECM, Motong, and whoever it is. And as we evolved, I remember 1994 was the first time David Nackett actually came back to play for Trinidad and Tobago. Besides with the strike squad, that didn't work out for him at that point in time. And he could play in your time too, because he speaks out a lot. And when he came back, and we didn't know anything about TV rights, Steve. We didn't know anything about image rights and any of that sort. And David, in the '94 Shell Caribbean Cup, at that point in time, educated us on all these other monies that we could be getting. There were prize monies and stuff like that, that nobody knew that we were getting hundreds of thousands of dollars for the Shell Cup. And Pele was here, and Haviland was here. Brian Lara, incidentally, was making the runs in Antigua at same time. And we played in the Oval, we played Martinique. Nobody think that we could have beat Martinique, and we did. You know, we had them 7-2. And at that time, so we stood up, and we started to be paid at that point in time, not just the stipend, but also that. And if you go anywhere and you work for any company and you go away, the company give you out of pocket. So all the things that we are asking for the players and for the staff and everybody is the normal stuff that happens in any organization and has consistently happened in the TTFA in the past. And again, because Robert and his team is not football-oriented people and they're business people, they need to ask the footballing people what are the best practices that you could. My boss has a construction company. He sent workers out. They gain out of pocket. They gain podium and all this kind of thing. So it's normal practice. What we are asking for here for the guys is not anything that is astronomical.
But national teams expect clubs to pay them their salary because they're playing football. And then when they go on trips, they give them a per diem.
Yeah.
And all of that.
Yeah.
So you say now, we're not playing football.
Right.
And we just need per diem for the players so they can eat.
Yes. Yes.
And so on. And they're not in agreement with this?
They're not in agreement.
Apparently not.
It was in the press. They said they'd never budget in FIFA for it. And I think that is totally unacceptable. For instance, we had a boy, Calvin Henry. He's a goalkeeper. He was with the futsal team that just leave about 2 weeks ago or something like that. And Kelvin was training with the team, but he's living Point Fortin. The training is down in West Morines in the international school. He's the best keeper that they have, and he's not with the team. The team got 7 and 8. Who knows if Kelvin was dead, who the coach said was the best goalkeeper for the futsal, but he couldn't pay to go to the training, and he got a job in a construction site. He had to live. He can't forego his living for going there. And not to be over melodramatic, but at the end of the day, the normalization committee of themselves, they're getting a salary. So, you know, it's a bit disingenuous if you feel that the player shouldn't get something, then you should be doing the job for free also, if you think that the player shouldn't get it.
Yeah, I think that is the point that we want the public to understand. Because if it is that these players, the staff, this is a job that they are doing, right? This is a job. It's reasonable that when you work, you are paid. That is not something that is a foreign concept. As we mentioned, they are business people and they come in. And in any of their businesses, when people work, they get paid. Of different payrolls, some people get paid fortnightly, weekly, monthly, right? There is no such cycle where you receive salaries 2 or 3 months after you work for it, because there are bills that are due every month end. You know, that those are the normal cycles. And I think that is what we want to get as a basic standard. When people do work, they should receive their salaries. I don't think that is something, as Angus said, that is.
But this was negotiated, you guys saying that he promised to pay?
Yeah.
Well, okay, so...
Or he didn't?
The players said, and we want to be clear on that part,
Yeah.
our stuff, the coaches' stuff, we have stuff in writing.
Yes.
They paid us half last year in December, it was. We were owed since March of last year. We were paid half in December. And we were promised the other half within the first 3 months of this year. That has not happened. The players came to us because I guess they're seeing that we are representing ourselves well. And probably we could, you know, tap into this group to help us also. and the players reported to us that they were promised, and the players, it was on record, they put it in the press, that they were promised by Mr. Haddad and his team that they would get a stipend, and then no stipend was forthcoming.
And that's I can see that's wrong, but on Haddad and this side, they probably saying that's not, I'm not obligated, because when we practice, when national teams practice, again, the club team pay them, give them the time.
But in best practice, Steve, even if you're in the English national team, they also we reviewed it and we researched it. The teams do get allowances.
Yeah,
allowances.
Yeah, they do. That is normal best practice.
Right. Well, so who's negotiating with? Somebody should take it up and negotiate. Is that what you guys doing for them, for the players?
Yes. We have taken it up to last night. I was able to get on to Kaleem, who is the captain.
Right.
And again, they are currently working on something to put that type of representation structure in place, but there is no dedicated group that does that. So on this, we are acting on their behalf. The local players as well, we have reached out to.
Okay, we take a break now, but when we come back, I want to continue this, and I also want to get into your business. Why are you not getting paid? And how we move forward with that as well. Viewers, we'll be right back after a short
break. When we have issues concerning the salaries last year, they addressed it 2 days before Christmas. We were able to receive 50%, and we are looking forward to that balance being cleared off.
Okay, welcome back, viewers. All right, guys. So we letting the normalization committee off the hook big time. If they're not paying the coaches, you're supposed to have had money. You work till we in May, and without payment, and now they're not paying the players, so they feel we can do them what they want. So somebody in your group, as the coaches, or you guys need to get together and make this happen for you and the players. No?
Yeah, well, that is what we have been doing, and again, we have been reaching out to them. There was a period where we weren't getting sufficient answers. There were periods where we weren't getting answers at all. And at this moment, as I said, they have reached out and they are willing to meet. So when we have issues concerning the salaries last year, they addressed it 2 days before Christmas. We were able to receive 50%, and we are looking forward to that balance being cleared off. Coaches, again, if we understand it, they are not working, they are not employed, they are not able to use the abilities, the skills that they have invested heavily in all their life to earn a living, to take care of their families. And again, we find it so unusual that somebody who is in charge of an organization would hold back salaries and wages from persons who dedicatedly work for it. And at this moment, the questions that we've been asking, because again, it's hard for us to understand why that period would be so long and so drawn out when we are looking at something as salary. Salary is something that was already agreed upon. This is not something to say some policy, some new thing, right? Which again, if they need time to deal and sort out these things, we're willing to wait the time for those things. But on the issue of salary, there's persons who are waiting for that funds now to do things that have long been expired.
I'm surprised, I guess you guys didn't put tools down and say, hey, we drop it.
What happens, Steve, is that they're using because in the pandemic we can't train. So we started training, and then training had to stop because no fault of theirs this time because it was the pandemic. For instance, if Jose Mourinho works for Tottenham Hotspur and he's fired, he's paid the other 6 months that is left in his contract. One chain of thought, and whoever is advising them, they didn't work for those other months, so don't pay them. But we have valid contracts. So that was one thing that we had to work through and stuff like that. And the other thing was that because of the pandemic, and they had the court case going on with the TTFA, and it was going back and forth, and accounts couldn't be used. There's still the issue of other guys who are owed. They're free to put the money in the account. But at the end of the day, FIFA money is not used for debts. Correct. And the reason why we're speaking out so vehemently now is because if we wait until the next tranche of FIFA money comes, we now become debt. But the money that was approved last year from FIFA was to pay us, right? And all the other stuff that they would have had to pay last year. And hence the reason we, as you rightly said, we probably waited a little bit long because we gave them time to organize themselves. And it's only now that we realize, and you have to remember, Steve, we're in a pandemic, everybody talking about health and jobs and what have you, and nobody really takes on sports seriously except sporting people like ourselves. And it's only when the team goes on the pitch and winning a game, then you see people come out and wave a flag. But they don't know the journey that Steve David would have to go on through, or Jefferson George, and they don't care. They want to see you play and perform on the field, and that is the bottom line. But we saw in England and in different parts of Europe, when the owners wanted to do their own things, and you saw that the people came out, and they had to apologize to the people. And this is where we are now. You know, we honestly believe Robert Haddad doesn't know. And we believe that the people who is advising him wrong, and that is why. And we thank him. We not thank him, but we see in a little bit of subtle changes where now he wants to listen and he's inviting us to meetings, and that is the only how we can go forward.
And you guys, you need to put your foot down, man. You cannot continue because we make it bad.
No, but Steve, we have given, Angus mentioned it, we have given the benefit of the doubt, right? So the actions that we take from here is taking everything into account, right? Giving him an opportunity to, as he would have himself would have admitted, to acclimatize to a new type of role, because although he's been in business, I can imagine this might have been a real baptism by fire, getting into this is totally different. And we know that those things take time to adjust. Getting his feet wet, looking at what he's into, interfacing with the media, which has been a particular challenge, right, where information is concerned and stuff like that. But we did, and we still do, give him the benefit of the doubt, right? We cannot, as you said, wait indefinitely, and we would have to change strategy from time to time. But at the end of the day, we would prefer that we operate in a manner that is amicable, and that we can, press forward with the business of football. This issues regarding salaries is one issue. We have a lot of other things to really get into where it concerns the actual running of football, and looking forward, post this normalization, to really get football back on its track. We've been down for a long time, Steve, and it's time we begin to lift our head up.
Well, if you guys don't make it happen, that would affect the players. So I think it's very important that the coaches make it happen, get up to date, and then help the players to get on board. Because we are in qualification, some kind of qualification going on now. So, I mean, I expect as a group, you guys get together and make and do something. Yeah, we do.
We are doing, as you mentioned, that we have the alliance with the KNBV, and from the 8th, which is Saturday coming, we're going to have some online workshops, right? We'll have 50 coaches having the opportunity to be, go through the material with the Dutch coaches in 3 lectures. We do 2, which would be catering to the grassroots coach, and we have 1 that would be more for the advanced level. So you have on the 8th, the 15th, and the 21st of this month. We're going to have those workshops taking place.
Now, if I can imagine I'm a player and I'm saying, well, the coach isn't getting paid, but who am I to step up and say, even though we had players from back in the day like Jimmy Springer and these guys, they ain't get a football boots and they strike.
Yeah.
And we ain't playing.
Yeah.
Give us our boots. Otherwise, how are we going to play? So, I mean, I don't know if you have that kind of players who speak out like that.
There's a couple of the guys, but it's a little bit different because they're not as cohesive as we were back in the day. And but what I could say is that the reason why we want to put ourselves forward because we don't want the guys to be victimized. You know how that is go.
I got you.
So we don't want the guys to be victimized. So we are taking the stance with them. We are going to go. That's why we made sure that when we got the phone call initially, we thought that we had to reach out to Khalid, him and Sheldon the 2 was representing the players at that time, but they are abroad. So the guys here would call in and asking for representation. And so we could make that stronger representation on their behalf than one of them going up forward. And, the easiest thing for them to do is leave them out. And the important thing is that we now have the technical staff of the senior team on board because they are members of the association. And they see the value in giving the players the help and the support that the players need. And I must shout out Mr. Griffith, the police commissioner. He comes in for a lot of licks. But in this case, with the football, he really is doing meals. He's doing transport for the guys, and he's plugged a massive hole. He can't get them stipend, but he has given them a sense of comfort in a way, and people must get credit where credit is due. But at the end of the day, we will be making a very strong and vigorous case, not just because if I'm coaching you, Steve, and you come hungry, and I have you running all over the place, so we have to advocate on behalf of the players.
It's mango season, so you can go. But question, why are you practicing in the north? I know you live in the north, Angus, but why is it all the way north and not like central? Again,
That's a good question. And because of the facility being provided by, again, Mr. Griffith, is where they can train.
So Atto Bolan is not available?
I don't understand it either. I'm a North man, but I'm a South guy also because I work in the South, so I know about traversing. I don't understand it. I don't know if it's because Mr. Griffith has really good facilities down there, and maybe because it's in the police barracks, it can be controlled with the COVID. I don't know. But yeah, we have the home of football, which is in Cuba. It's more centralized. I think it's more even for all the guys who come in all around. It even have dormitories there that they could probably put the guys up. You could train twice a day.
Utilize it.
Put some food there. They could train in the morning, they eat, and then they go back in the afternoon. So, but I don't know. But those are questions that we would ask.
Yeah, because I thought that facility was built for something like this, for a national team to come and they have their own home of football. And we're not using the home.
Well, it's a step-down facility for COVID right now. So.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, they use it as a
oh, okay. Maybe that's it, right? Let's hope that's why. But they could alternate, maybe 1 week here, 1 week there, or 1 day here, 1 day there. That would help out the South guys.
Yeah, of course. But those details, as Angus said, we're not too aware of what the thought behind using that facility was. But I mean, we could assume that it has to do with with that ability to control the environment. And again, as I said, the commissioner who has been providing a lot of support. If he has a quality facility there and also providing transportation to the facility, again, I think the logistics probably worked out itself.
That would help the commissioner as well for those he getting some unbiased
Yeah.
or biased licks from the public like running football. So you have to help him in that regard because he's taking that, he's providing,
Yeah.
but he's taking licks for it.
Yeah, yes.
Well, you know,
Yeah.
damn if you do, damn if you don't, you know. You can't really win.
Right.
You have to try to be, you know, as helpful as you can. And I think in this case, the boys are seeing it as definite something that they appreciate.
Right. So, what else, like you guys uncover or, you know, that is creeping around that could manifest itself down the road? Anything that other than?
I think one thing that we are also disappointed in, I don't think we think that foreign or local. We're not going foreign
Right.
or local or racism or things like people saying. But we're saying that our guys can get an even chance to get jobs in Trinidad, especially in a pandemic. And if you're purporting that you do not have funds, the local coaches are more susceptible to work for lesser salaries because you live here. You probably have your vehicle already. You're living in your own home. You don't have to look for all those facilities for local coaches. And they have consistently, since they have gone in, hired foreign coaches. And we think that our guys are capable, qualified, and should be given an equal opportunity just as the guys abroad that will be given. Because when you say guys are abroad, I'm from Wales. I'm learning what I'm learning in Wales. I'm from Trinidad. I'm learning from Wales. So he's a local also in Wales because the guy not coaching in a different country. He doesn't have a big contract in Italy. And if he does, would he come here if he has a big contract in Italy? So then what you know, the level of exposure that some of our coaches have is actually more than some of these guys who are actually coming into the jobs. And for us, that is not equality, and we're looking for equality for our coaches.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I'm seeing foreign coaches being hired, and I'm sure they're being paid. And also, what happens at the end of this normalization? Do they have contracts to continue on, or I hope that ends right then? What's going to happen? You guys have any idea?
Yeah. Well, even before you reach to the end of the contract, as Angus mentioned, I think the prevailing thought here would be, if you're saying that funds are short, it doesn't make sense to go hire a guy who you're going to have to provide housing for. You're going to have to give him a vehicle. He's going to ask you for the salary that he wants. You know, those two ideas don't go together.
Oxymoron.
Yeah, they're oxymoronic. You know, and again, they're trying to pass that off as though it's normal, right? As Angus said, I have huge confidence in our local coaches. I think if we are given the opportunity, we will do well, and given the opportunity and the support. And again, it's reducing the opportunities that the local guys have. I think that's not something that will serve us well going down the road.
I would have 1 minute, but I'll give you 30 seconds. Any appeal? Anything that...
I just think that we need to respect each other. Stephen, as you know in your journalist department, we as coaches, players, and administration, we just all need to respect each other.
Yeah. I would like to say, Angus mentioned it, to the public, right? You have a voice, right? Don't underestimate the power of us being united, right? We want to see football back again where we can be proud of our players, to put them out. And we have an opportunity. Use your voice, speak, and yeah, let us support our own.
All right, that's coming from Jefferson George and his group viewers. Viewers, thank you for tuning in, and thank you for tuning in every Monday night. And also thank you for looking at the repeats on a Saturday and Tuesday. Hey, two guys, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks
very
As
much.
usual, appreciate you so much. ACTN, thanks for the opportunity. We have a Facebook page, you can check us out, and we have an email address, feederdreamspt@gmail.com, where you can drop us a line. This show has ended. Go in peace. My name is CJ.